What's up, everybody? Welcome back, yet again, to another edition of the Dirty and Driven Podcast. That's right, baby. My name is James DeVinny. I am your host today of this wonderful, fine episode. Today, we're joined by a special guest, a woman who is dominating it in her field of construction. She's a project manager. She's an engineer. She's working for a road building company, heavy highway company. She's blowing shit up on the reg. Her name is Anna Bosco. Anna is a great guest. We talk about a wide variety of things, and it was just a pleasure to talk to her. I met Anna because she hit me up and said, "Yo, I would like to buy some Dirty and Driven t-shirts." And I said, "Whoa, I'd love to sell you some." So that's pretty cool. I'm really appreciative of that, Anna. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this project in that way and for coming on the show. It's pretty awesome. So, guys, few of you have asked me, how can we support you? We want to support you. If you want to buy shirts, hit me up. I will get them on the website at some point. But if you want some, hit me up and I'll sell them to you before I get them on the website. Also, we just added a link in our bio on all social media. It's a link tree. There's a place you can just donate if you want to give $1, $5, $10, $20. It's just called the Tip Jar. And we'd appreciate it if you supported us in any way. We're just going to use that money to keep growing the show. Like I've said before, we've dropped several $1,000s on this show just in the last few weeks to upgrade our equipment, make things better. We're setting up a studio right now. It's not quite done, but we're working on it. So it's just going to keep growing the show, getting awesome guests on. If you want to support the show and not spend any money, hit me up. DM me the word sticker on all social media at Dirty and Driven, and I will mail you a sticker and a handwritten thank you note anywhere in the world. I do not care where in the world you are. Or you can also just share the show. We really appreciate it when people share the show and just spread the love, spread the word, tell people what we're all about, and just keep growing. If you ever want to hear any topics, if you ever have any questions, hit us up. Some of you have had some amazing conversations with me in the DMs lately about just career advice, just looking for help, trying to find a job, all sorts of cool stuff, man. It's been really meaningful conversations. Anyways, guys, show Anna some love. Give her a follow. Her Instagram handle is Chalk Sauce. So anyways, hit her up on there. That will be in the bio as well, or the show notes? Show notes, not the bio. Anyways, guys, here is the show. So, and you're what, a project management role?
Yes.
Nice.
So project manager, work for a smaller company, so do kind of both project management and general superintendent type work.
Okay, that's cool. So how big of a crew do you guys run?
We've got about 100 employees. We self-perform the majority of our work. Obviously, we sub out the specialty items.
Okay, that's cool. That's a pretty good sized company, 100 people.
Yeah.
Do you guys operate out of one location or do you have multiple?
No, we've got one office in Roanoke, and most of our projects are a 2-hour radius.
Yeah, so you're pretty local.
Yeah, try to keep people at home.
Yeah, that's always the goal, right? For some companies, I guess some guys like traveling, but yeah, I like the small company, stay at home type stuff.
I don't know. I've got a couple folks who I think their relationships are built on them working out of town.
Yeah,
but no, most of the time it's not the case.
Explain that one to me.
I guess like if your wife gets used to you being gone from Monday through Friday every week, you just can't change it.
They kind of start to like it. That's funny.
I don't know.
She's like, just bring home the paycheck. That's all I need. That's funny. I've met some guys like that too. I met a guy, he was a truck driver one time, and we were asking him, and he said, yeah, I've got a house in this city and I've got a house on this lake. And he said, if I'm not driving this truck, I go to my lake house because if I go home, I'm pretty sure my wife will kill me.
That escalated.
Well, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, so
I don't know.
same kind of deal.
That's not for me. I like to sleep in my own bed.
I do too. I only spent a few weeks doing like the whole living out of a hotel thing, and it got old fast.
Yeah,
But
no.
so how'd you get into the whole construction world?
So, you know, went to college. Everyone said just be an engineer,
Yeah.
and started in computer science, which would not have been the right choice for me. And
Yeah.
knew that
Very different.
knew I did not want to sit at a desk for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And so just was like, what major can I get an engineering degree and be outside?
Nice. That's kind
So
of
I
the
did
same way.
succeed.
Yeah. So did you end up going to like a construction engineering or civil engineering or
Yeah, I went through a civil engineering program,
yeah? Where'd you go?
Virginia Tech.
Oh, cool.
Got very lucky to have gone to college for something else and then gone through a top 10 program on accident.
Whoops. Yeah, that's cool. So do you use your civil engineering degree at all or
A little
some?
bit.
Yeah.
And, I'm working on becoming a professional engineer because I think there's times that will help me.
Oh, nice.
But the vast majority of things, you learn a lot in school and then you get out in the field and realize how little of it was applicable or how much easier it is to learn when you're doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, a good combination of both definitely helps though. Kind of learn what you can apply from school and then you go do it in the real world and then what you learned in school starts making sense a little more and
Yeah, I definitely remember like memorizing stone properties in school. And then you go and you watch them get installed and you're like, oh, well, this makes way more sense than you just trying to get me to memorize what stone was what.
yeah. And those guys probably don't care which one's what.
No,
They just put it in. Yeah. That's neat though. So, do you guys do like design build work?
a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I could see where a civil engineer degree would help with that if you guys are designing projects and stuff.
That and a lot of, my boss is a professional engineer and we like to be able to say, hey, this doesn't make sense. Here's something that makes more sense, and here's the engineering behind it. We promise it's going to work.
Yeah. That's helpful. Yeah, because sometimes engineers they don't really like to hear the feedback from the field. Always they like to just say, "Well, that's how it's going to work," and it's well, no, it doesn't work. And you try to explain it to them, but the guy running a track hoe speaks a way different language than the guy who's designing the job. So that's kind of cool to have that buffer and you being able to go to that engineer and say, "Well, I speak your language too."
We were trying to hire somebody else to fill like a project engineer position. How do you put please speak both engineer and redneck as a job requirement?
You know, that's what I say all the time too. I always say, the reason I'm good at my job is because I speak redneck and I speak engineer. It's exactly what you just.
Exactly. I think
Yeah,
it's a requirement for being a project manager.
yeah, it's so funny, and especially whenever you get around other cultures and stuff too, and like you get around like this guy that's just lived small town, worked for the same place his whole life, just country boy through and through, and then he gets around like a Chinese guy. That language barrier there is incredible in
Yes.
the funniest ways possible. They whenever a redneck walks up and he's like a motor grader hand and he's like, yeah, we're gonna get in here, slick this off, but I don't think that's gonna drain all too well, but we're gonna try and get it on the gnat's ass, and then you get this other guy who's totally different culture. He just looks at it and he's like, okay, just does not register. And then he tries to speak back and nope, they do not understand each other. It's funny.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Spanish speaking employees, and
Mm-hmm.
almost every crew has a translator except the one I've been working with. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I could see. So do you speak Spanish at all?
I really wish I did. I
Yeah.
have every intention of learning, but languages have never come easy to me, and so
Yeah.
it's been harder than I wanted.
Yeah, I tried learning Spanish for like a year before I finally just said, "Screw this," because
Am I my thing is if I
It
download those apps, it's relevant to going on a trip. But I don't need to
mhm,
go to work and ask someone where my suitcase or my ticket is.
right. I took actually one of the most helpful college classes I took was a construction Spanish class. And it was actually pretty cool. It was like very basic fundamentals of just like, hey, it's how to say like be careful or watch out or, here's, the PPE words, stuff like that. It was actually pretty helpful. Very,
That's
very
exactly
basic.
what I want.
Yeah. The company was called like Red Angle was who we did it through, and just very easy, applicable construction Spanish classes.
I might need to write
And I
that
mean,
down.
of course, yeah, it's helpful. Yeah, Red Angle. Yeah, and I can text it to you or something. But
Okay.
I think I might have a few of their lessons saved too. So if I do, I'll send them to you. But
Thank you.
yeah, very awesome. Yeah, and I kind of fell out of the practice because we actually, where I work, you'd think being in Oklahoma, we have a lot of Spanish speaking people, but where I work specifically, we don't. But we have a lot of Marshallese speaking people, and good luck finding anything on Google to learn a tribal language like that. So
Oops. Yeah.
I gave up on Spanish myself.
That's reasonable. And I get spoiled working. Again, almost every crew has a fully bilingual person, which is something we do on purpose as a company.
Hmm.
And it's just so easy to look to them to translate instead of learning myself.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you have that crutch, it makes it hard because then because you're kind of self conscious when trying to speak it, and then you're just like, I'm just gonna ask this guy.
Yeah, I don't try and put sentences together. I just like say the noun and I point to what I'm saying. So that way if it's
Hmm.
pronounced horribly.
Hmm. Yeah, I love construction sign language. That's the that's the universal language we all speak.
Watching different people try and direct with rigging their hand
Hmm.
signals. Oh no.
Yeah, that's funny. So before you went to college, you didn't have any desire to work construction?
Not really. The only experience I had sort of related to construction at all was sort of through like nonprofit mission trip type things doing home repair.
Hmm.
And so I was exposed to that world, and I actually did consider making a career out of that, which is not what I chose to do, but
Yeah.
that is so different than the heavy civil side that I'm actually in that very few of those skills have translated.
Yeah. It kind of got you at least exposed, I guess, to the construction world and made you realize it
Yeah.
was an option, I guess.
Yeah.
I love what those mission trips crack me up though, because, and I've been on some of those before, and it's just so funny because like you just see like a 10-year-old out there like pouring concrete with a church group of people that have no idea how to do it, but they
Yeah.
always seem to do a pretty good job.
So I actually worked for 4 summers in college for a group that did the mission trip. So like the churches were coming to us.
Yeah.
Um, that group of 22-year-olds that are leading you also does not know what they're doing. Uh, but because I was in the community where I was living, I've driven past several of the things we built. They're all still there. They all still seem to be functional. I think the
Yeah.
homeowners were happy with what we were able to help them with.
That's cool. Where were you guys doing those types of projects?
Um, so I went to Virginia Tech, which is in Blacksburg, Virginia, and
Mhm.
the kind of the area around there is called the New River Valley, and that's where we were based out of.
Okay. So you were doing them like in Virginia, that like having mission groups come to you guys and doing them there.
Yeah,
That's cool. What was the organization called?
it was called Summer Project Youth. Actually, does not exist anymore.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so it's just like based out of a single church. Was
Yeah.
not part of. I've seen them much larger organizations, but that one was just a one group.
Hmm. That's cool though. So were you guys building like new houses or doing repairs?
No, it was repairs, um, like new wheelchair ramps, porch, second entry or exits, repairing subfloor, occasional roof repairs, especially like cool ceiling trailers.
Hmm. That's cool. Yeah. See, I like that. Like I said, I've done some of those, and like I know that my sister did it at one point, and which cracks me up the thought of my sister roofing. But yeah, it gets you exposed, and it at least gets, kids and even adults that haven't been around it exposed to the industry, and at least makes you appreciate the blue collar people.
Yeah, and a lot
And
of
I
the
think,
management stuff I learned there has translated, just not the construction side of it.
yeah, I mean the practical, but still, you learn how to run projects and schedules and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's pretty neat, pretty cool way to learn. And where else that's helpful is we're getting a lot of new people in the industry that don't have a lot of those skills and haven't necessarily had a blue collar job before. So that's kind of a similar deal. Is you know, leading
yeah.
a group of mission trip kids that have no idea what they're doing either.
It's actually a pretty good comparison.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because a lot of them are going to come in the same age, like let's say an 18-year-old. He might join the industry. Well, it's going to be the same as the 16 to 18-year-old that you were showing how to do the mission trip stuff to. So that's actually a really cool skill that you learned in your summers.
Yeah.
It's neat. Huh. So so did you just get plugged into that by going on a mission trip and saying, this is actually pretty cool. I like this.
Sort of. Kind of, I guess, the church I went to was actually a lot of what I did in high school was through like at a singular church camp, doing just work around that camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to college, it was, a church in the same town, kind of, and all this was through the Methodist church, which is like a very connectional system.
Mm-hmm.
And did that for one summer and thought eventually that I would do more internship type things, but loved it and kind of kept doing it.
That's cool. Yeah. So did that play a role in you deciding to go to get like a civil engineering degree?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of helped you realize it. That's neat. So then how did you were you doing that and you're like, well, I want to do this field, but the residential stuff just isn't really my jam, or how did you decide to get into the civil business?
Basically,
Yeah.
I had my understanding kind of through looking at company websites, and our school did a really good career fair, and that's how I sort of was like, I will get to be outside and doing actual engineering the most if I go into heavy civil. I actually thought I wanted to do bridges,
Mm-hmm.
but I also really didn't want to move. Like, I liked the area I was in. I didn't want to have to move.
Yeah.
Which narrowed down the options a lot. And so got my first job through the career fair.
Nice. Nice.
I don't work for that company anymore, but it was a good introduction to this world. It was sort of a seamless start as far as, I found you at this career fair. You have hired me. I'm not graduating until May. All that worked out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that a lot of times people that get out of college think that they need to work for the same place for the rest of their life after they find their job, because that's what our parents did. But I mean, you go try stuff, and if it's not for you, then you move on to the next one. So that one was more bridge work?
No, they were also a roadway contractor.
Okay.
That was just what I could find without moving, and nothing against that company, but I like where I'm working now a lot better.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty neat. How long have you been working where you're at now?
2.5, almost 3 years.
Yeah. So you've been there a while. That's cool. So did you start out in like that project management role, or did you start out in another role?
Yeah, the kind of came in as a like project engineer was my job title, but it was always more on the management end of things. Mm-hmm. I can't operate. I know I should be able to. I'm actually the only project manager at our company that can't operate.
Yeah.
Everyone else started as a laborer and has worked their way up to this role. But at the time when I came in, just really needed somebody else that had the computer skills and the background knowledge and, being able to jump in with the scheduling and estimating.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I'm no operator myself, other than a few little things, but I don't know. It's still cool though. I mean, I have a respect for the guys that do operate, and I understand how hard it is. And I always ask them when like bidding a job and trying to figure out things is, hey, how can I make your job easier, and how can we build this job efficiently? Because I want your input.
Yeah, especially like superintendents who have done something similar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember on this project X, Y, and Z. And you're like, okay. Yeah. Well, now we know what works the best in the past.
Yeah. Man, that's the coolest thing about like I know that there's some people that are so antsy for like the current generation to phase out or like the guys that are still hanging around that should have retired years ago, but God, those guys are such a wealth of knowledge. It's insane. It's especially in an area where they've just worked their whole lives. It's like they know what is underneath everything
Yeah, we just
because they're probably involved.
did a water line project and went to one of our project managers was like, oh, when I was a superintendent, I put the sewer in. Directly under that. Here's what you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always such a cool advantage too. Whenever you're bidding a job, is you're like, oh yeah, we know exactly what's under there.
There is not rock.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a big difference whenever you can do that kind of stuff. It's cool talking to those people. So, did you work in the field at all before you got into the project management side?
No, interned with a bridge crew for a summer, but I hurt my ankle super badly, so that was ended up only working like 6 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And I'm willing to help out when needed, and especially at my old job, found myself doing a lot of, oh no, we need someone to go do this. This is what you're doing for the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten a weird amount of experience like that, but I've never worked full time on a crew.
Yeah. Well, hey, even that kind of stuff is just so helpful. I wish that there was more people in that project management / engineer / estimate role that even got out just for an afternoon every now and then, because it's so easy to lose sight on the perspective whenever you're not out in the field, or even just going out and just watching and just
Yeah.
kind of watching your people do it. It's so eye opening and kind of brings you back down to earth on what's actually going on out in the field.
So we have 3 concrete crews, and I find watching concrete get finished the most calming thing ever. Like if I'm
It is
having a
very
bad day, it's like, let's go watch them finish some sidewalk.
It is very satisfying to watch. I love it because it goes from like this big, ugly, rocky mess to nice, smooth. It's cool. I'm with you on that one. Watching them finish it and then like broom it.
Yeah.
It's pretty satisfying to watch. So is that like one of your more favorite operations to be around as a concrete side?
I don't know. I've done a lot of it in this last year.
Yeah,
I think
that's neat.
part of the reason I like roadway projects so much is you get to see all of that. You start with pipe, then you have a fill, then you're putting, subgrade, and then there's concrete. I like that a little bit better than when you're, okay, right now I'm on a 2-year sewer job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I like about roadway too, is it's neat. Which going from everybody says like, oh, all road projects are the same that aren't in the industry. But man, they're just so wrong, because especially whenever you're going from, like you're saying, like total rebuild or total new build, putting in the utilities and then shaping up a road that wasn't there before and putting your fill in or taking your cuts and then digging your ditches and yeah, putting your lines in and then stabilizing and then getting it all on grade and then paving. It's so satisfying and rewarding.
The one thing I think is interesting for me, actually kind of cool, is I'm driving through the last roadway project I built to get to the current project, so I get to see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
But we were out there for 2 years, but what everybody sees is the pavement, the guardrail, and the stripes.
Yep.
All 3 of which is subcontracted work for us. I'm like, I promise there's so much more.
Yeah, there's so much below. Yeah, that's what's cool, is just all the buried treasures.
And so we found an old stone box culvert that was from under an old railroad track where they literally had just laid stones on top of this. It was cool.
That's insane. Yeah, that was what I was just about to say, is like the buried treasure you find underground of like just how they used to do things is so cool. It's
Then you
like
find a
whenever
lot of
you're
stuff
digging
too that you scratch your head at. Why did you do this?
Yep. You find that too. It does always crack me up too. Like if I'm ever on like a utility job and we're like digging up an old line and either replacing the line or doing a big repair, it always cracks me up to see what trash is in that hole.
Yes.
It's like, what was this guy eating on this day, or what was he drinking? And then you find like a beer can or something. You're like, yeah, that's how they did it back in the 70s, huh?
Yeah, my boss is very adamant that we don't throw trash in the ditch, kind of for that reason.
Really?
He's like, I know that it doesn't actually affect anything, but
Yeah, that's true though. I mean, because there's some of those that you find a lot of trash in them.
and it just reflects back on a company that, if your job site's clean and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, because that hole's gonna be open for a little while before you actually bury it. So I'm along that premise too that you should just throw it away. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like digging underground, and because you see, it's a time capsule, and so you can see like how things used to be done, or like you said, you see things that people did before that was janky, and they tried to cover it up, and you're like, man, what was the thought process here?
Or I did a water line project in a pretty downtown area, and we kept coming up to something like, all right, anyone know what this is? And it was a night work section, so you couldn't just call someone.
Mm.
So we were just standing there like, well, let's go under it.
Just like random lines that weren't marked or something.
Yeah, and probably most of the time we assumed it was dead. A couple
Yeah,
times we did get permission to dig something up, but like some of it was the water line we were replacing dated back to the 1930s, and some of this was older than that. So who knows?
wow. Was that like an old just lead line or?
Um, yes. I had to
Yeah,
think about that for a second. And even while we were in this project, they had 2 breaks within the project limits.
that's God, that's crazy. 19. It's crazy to me that there's stuff that was built in like underground utilities that were built that far ago, that long ago, and are still operational. Especially like an old lead line or something like that. It's like, oof, why is that still in service? So what have been like some of your more favorite projects you've worked on then?
I think definitely the last roadway project I did was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I enjoy the watching something come together. So, with the roundabout projects we're working on right now, I don't have much to do with the current one, but you go from a T intersection to where's this circle going to be to, oh, this is starting to look round, which is where that project is right now. And so it's very, like, by the end of it, you almost can't remember what it looked like in the beginning.
That's always the cool part about those kinds of projects is exactly that. Like from the very first time the shovel hits the ground to the end of the project, you look at before and after and you're like, the first day you go, I don't know how this is going to start looking like that, but then you just chip away at it, and especially those operators that are really good, they know how to make it work, and then you start looking at it more and more, and you're like, yep, it's starting to shape up, starting to make sense now.
Yeah, and we've recently moved into the 21st century and have started using GPS models.
Yeah.
And so that really helps because even at the beginning when you haven't changed anything, walk out there with a can of spray paint and spray paint where it's going to be. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
now I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those GPSs, they make it easier to visualize it too, especially if you can put some stakes and pins in the ground and, like you said, mark it out a little bit with spray paint. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Makes it easier to visualize. How old are you?
26.
Okay, cool. And so I got kind of 2 questions for you then. Like as far as one, has your age played any role to how you do your job? Like, does anybody ever think like, oh yeah, that young chick, she doesn't know anything, or have you ran into any of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Direct quote, that little girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Quote.
Tough.
So I have. I'm very lucky to work with, the folks at my company don't treat me like that. It's almost exclusively folks from outside the company, and I've got people that support me, but I have definitely heard that or had somebody explain to me something that I already knew. They just assumed, whether it be my age or gender, that I just didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was wondering is like, yeah, just what challenges do you face I mean, both as a young person and as a woman in a management role, because I know that those 2 things, sometimes they play a role and sometimes they don't. But yeah, I'd love to hear the challenges.
I think something that's interesting to me, like the first company I worked for, definitely faced, some, what was really weird was like verbal sexual harassment, but from folks who wanted me to succeed. Like it was
Mm,
just a different, kind of the old school, good old boy, this is just what we do kind of thing.
yeah.
And versus where I work now, where yeah, everybody still jokes around, but there's never been any time where I felt like someone was making direct quotes about my body because I was a woman.
Yeah.
Um, so that was maybe just sort of learning to stand up for myself in that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I feel like the only time it's just thinking that either I don't know or just, and to be fair, sometimes I don't have the right amount of experience. However,
Yeah.
I'm willing to admit I don't know how to do that. Let me go talk to someone who's done this before.
Yeah.
I actually
That's
had a really cool experience like a month ago of we thought we were gonna have to rent a crane for something, and I didn't have a relationship with the crane guy, so me and another project manager went to meet with him. And this guy goes, "Oh, you're helping them out now." And the other manager I was working with, he stopped and said, "No, we're both project managers. We're equals." And I've never
awesome.
had somebody, I don't care. Someone can underestimate me. I'll prove them wrong eventually. But that was the first
Yeah.
time someone had stopped in the middle of a conversation and stuff for me like that.
Yeah. That's awesome when that happens. That's really cool. And props to that guy.
I don't think he even realizes how much that meant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, props to that guy. I dealt with that definitely when I first entered the industry as a, management role and like, I probably came on thinking I knew more than I actually did. I always make the joke that I knew more that when I was 21 years old than I know now
Oh yeah.
because the more I am in this industry, the more I realize how little I know. And that's important. And like you said earlier, being able to just stand up and say, yeah, I don't know this one, but let me talk to someone who does. I think that gains you more respect. The words I don't know sometimes are the most powerful words you can say in those situations.
I find myself a lot when I'm asking to do something, I'll have an idea, but the way I present it, I'll be like, well, do you think we should do this? And sometimes I'll get a yes and it'll just go get done. And sometimes I'll be like, well, what if this or no, because thing you
Mhm.
forgot to think about. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that works out a lot better for me as a manager than just walking up to someone and saying, go do this.
Yeah. Well, that's such an important leadership tactic is saying, well, how come we haven't looked at it from this way? Or maybe they have and just saying, well, how come we can't do this? And then that person might think about it and then they go, well, we can do that. Actually, I didn't even think of that. And whenever you approach it from that, you're not bruising anybody's ego and you're not making them look like an idiot. It's just, oh, yeah, that's a different line of thought. I didn't think of that.
Um, Something else kind of funny I've just noticed from being younger, like I don't want paper plans in the field. They're large, they blow in the wind. I don't even care if I'm looking at my little phone screen. I do not want paper plans. And everybody else is like, what do you mean? Go print a plan set.
I drive our people crazy because I almost like refuse to print them anymore. It's like, dude, just try it. Just try the iPad, please.
Also, you can zoom in so much better.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Yeah.
scale it on my tablet. You don't have to get your scale out.
Yeah. What program do you guys use for that, just by the way?
Bluebeam.
Bluebeam. Yeah, I like Bluebeam. Yeah. I try to do that too. And it's like, whoa, we still want paper plans. It's like, okay, fine. I'll give them to you, but just try this one first and I'll give them to you.
I do appreciate, when I came into this company, I was like, I don't like paper plans. I want to use Bluebeam. And my boss was like, okay. And
Yeah.
then like a month later, he was like, oh, this is great. Can you put it on my computer too, please?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that progression happens. Goes from hell no, we're not doing that to, well, how are we supposed to do it without that?
Sometimes very quickly.
Yeah. My boss, he's in his early 70s and he's a sharp guy, man. He knows everything. And he always tells this joke about how in the, like, I think it was in the 1970s, they were just coming out with pipe lasers whenever you're setting pipe. And they ordered so much. They were putting in like 5-foot storm pipe under one of the major roads in our town. And the old foreman they had back then, the salesman gave him a pipe laser for ordering all the pipe. He said, yeah, try this thing out. It's really helpful. How the hell am I supposed to lay pipe with a laser? And then after he's like, just try it, just give it a shot. Well, after 2 weeks, there was another job going on. And they're like, hey, can we use that pipe laser for that job? He goes, well, how the hell do you expect me to lay all that pipe without that laser?
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
I've really seen that with GPS.
Mm-hmm. So you guys have just recently gotten into GPS?
Yeah. Something my company had been considering for a while, and then I had experience with it. So
Yeah.
very soon after they brought me on board, they pulled the trigger and purchased all the. I mean, it's a high startup cost.
Yeah, it is. It's almost as much as a new piece of iron and more than a lot of pieces of iron.
Yeah. So it was, but I think we all agree it's been well worth it.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, even if you get an older model and just use it, it's so helpful. Like most people, I'd say a lot of people have it now, but there's a lot of people that still don't have it. And it's so helpful.
Yeah. The one piece of resistance I've heard, which I think is slightly valid, is especially your dozer operator. He's not going to be able to see grade like the old guys could. He's just going to only be able, your younger dozer operators that you put directly on a GPS machine. But
Mm-hmm.
you get a better finished product faster.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. It's true. I mean, and the older guys I know that use it. I remember I was actually blown away this is the first summer I worked on a road crew. I remember asking the foreman, like, oh, well, what do you really think about that GPS? And he was an old guy. I've talked about him on the show before. He was old dude. And he goes, dude, I 100%. He's like, I have no opposition against it. He goes, yeah, it's giving me trouble. But he goes, from day one, he said that from the first time I used it, I was like, yeah, I believe in it.
Yeah, the first few months using it, one of the superintendents I was working with, he was always shooting nails behind it, and now he's just, all right, roll.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
We make lots of jokes about not having to drop rocks on slopes anymore.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned way of making sure it was the right grade.
Old-fashioned way. Yeah, I've worked as a grade checker, and it's a lot easier with GPS.
Yeah.
Golly, because you'd spend especially it wouldn't even be a very big job, but you'd spend half a day just with a grade rod and a laser, just going out there, beep 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 beep, beep, just doing that, and then regrading it, and then doing it all again. And I mean, it's been a long time just checking hubs.
So VDOT still requires your stone grade has to be off hubs.
Really?
Which is, they're getting there, but I actually weirdly enjoy going out and shooting grade for that.
Oh, I enjoy it too, but it is time consuming.
Very time consuming. And of course it's never as quick as you think it's going to be. There's always something wonky, and you're grading the same 300 feet for 2 hours.
Yep. Yeah, you are. And sometimes you get some young dumbass like myself who does a calculation wrong, and then you take too much cut out, and then you realize the calculation was wrong, and you got to put the fill back in. And, so with GPS, you kind of eliminate that. But it's still good to check it on the hubs though every now and then just to make sure, because I mean GPS has its own set of problems sometimes.
It does.
We've had it before. Yeah, we've had it before on jobs where we've had 2 jobs in the last year where it just was like it would show fine, and then there'd be just like weird little spots on the job where it would just show you some crazy numbers, and it's like that doesn't make any sense.
I worked on a project where it wouldn't work after 2 p.m. I guess just because of where the satellites were.
Interesting. That was how the old school GPS worked. I talked to whenever I was in college, I took a surveying class, and our surveying teacher was like, yeah, dude, when GPS first came out, he goes, you had about a 2-hour window that you could use it. And he's like, you'd just count down, be like, noon to 2, the satellites would be coming over, and you're like, all right, you'd get out and do as much shit as you could with the GPS. And then
in those 2 hours.
Yeah. And then you'd pack up and go, and you thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then he's like, it's a lot better now.
Yes.
Nice. So, I mean, we kind of asked about your age, and you touched on the whole, woman issue as well. Is that kind of a hand in hand hurdle, or, I mean, has there been other issues as well with that? Or, I mean, has it been just absolutely great for the most part?
No, I do think it's been overwhelmingly positive, and that people want to. I think in theory, everyone wants to see young women succeed in the industry. And sometimes when they're faced with the reality of it, especially folks who are up in their 60s, they want the next generation of young women to succeed in the industry.
Yeah.
Might be a polite way of putting that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, I can think of a specific instance where someone just sort of, like, my success made that person feel threatened. I'm not replacing you're 40 years older than me. You have so much knowledge I cannot replace. Me succeeding at my job does not diminish your success in yours. And I think that just because you're young or different sometimes makes people nervous. I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
right emotion to assign to that.
I could see where you're coming from on that. That makes sense. Yeah. I think that more so it's just an ego thing and people start to feel threatened at times about younger people in the industry, especially when it's a person who, because like going to college and then coming out in a management role in construction is a pretty new concept,
Yes.
especially to the older guys. So I think that whenever you get that kid that comes out of there, it's, oh, well, they think they know everything because they went to college, when most of the time that's just not true. And I think that once they learn that, then it's a lot better.
Yeah, and the company I work for now, it's been so much better than how I was, the first group I worked for. And part of that is I got lucky in that they were actually a subcontractor for who I was working for. And, we had interacted with each other for 6 or 9 months before I came on board. And so they
Yeah.
already knew that I produced high quality work. That period of like having to prove yourself had already happened prior to my employment,
Yeah.
at least to my boss. There's other folks in the company that, maybe took them a little bit longer, but that's always going to happen when you meet new people.
Yeah.
And I worked with an inspector who I don't think he was like a challenging person to work with, and I do think that my age played a role in there. That somebody older would have been somebody he wasn't that much older than me, and I think if somebody had been older than him, it would have he would have treated them differently.
Yeah. I got you.
But I truly don't believe with him that gender was an issue.
Yeah. I don't think it is most time either. I mean, I think most people are out there and they're just like, I just want to get the job done. Let's just get the job done. I don't care who does it.
I mean, Hispanic women are the fastest growing sector of the construction industry, and I can even see that at my company.
No kidding, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
the industry as a whole, Hispanic women are the fastest growing folks coming into the workforce.
That's absolutely incredible.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't. I don't personally know any Hispanic women who are working in the industry, but that would make sense to me that they're one of the fastest growing. That's really cool.
I
That's a
wish I could.
neat stat.
I know I read that somewhere reputable, but I can't remember to cite it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it'd be fairly easy to look up. That's
All right,
well,
audience,
and
look it
that's
up yourself.
yeah, yeah. Look it up yourself. Fact check us that way. Huh. See, that's a cool stat to hear too. And and I just want to say, like, I think that the whole because I've worked with dudes that are just kind of gross towards um, the women in the industry. I think they're few and far between, but I mean, if you are that guy, calm down, man. Like don't be that guy. That's those days I think are over, and I think that like women deserve the respect. And I think most 95% give them the respect they deserve because like I said, everybody wants to get the job done. Nobody cares who's doing it as long as they're doing their job.
Yeah.
And just like if you're a woman and you're not doing your job well, then you should be treated just as a dude who doesn't do his job well. And you should either be coached or, gotten rid of if you're just not a good worker at all.
And I shouldn't have to go to work and worry about, are my clothes loose enough that someone's not looking at my butt?
Right.
That's just
No,
dumb.
you should. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like I've heard the comments that people make. And like my wife, she works in a blue collar field too. She works in an oil refinery. And that's something that, she'll be like, oh, well, this guy was so nice to me. And this, I'm like, I just want to tell you, like, you shouldn't have to watch for this stuff, but just keep in mind some of these guys are pretty gross behind your back. So just be careful in that regard. Be careful who you get too close to because some of these guys are not they don't have your best interest in mind. I just want to let you know that because I've heard what they say about women in the industry whenever you're not around, and that's sad. And I hope that guys will hopefully, like you're saying your other manager did, he stood up for you and he said, hey, quit that.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
So
also, like, side note, soapbox of almost all the high vis clothing in the world are made for men's bodies, and women just have different body types.
Yeah.
So if you're on the side of Instagram that is women in construction, that is the world's biggest complaint of make good quality clothes that actually fit us.
Yeah. Makes sense. I can see where that'd be an issue. Would you encourage other women to get into the industry?
Yes. If you like being outside and you're, I don't want to say thick-skinned because that sounds a little bit old-fashioned for the construction industry, but you do need to be someone who can stand up for yourself, who
Right.
already knows that they can do this and is ready to prove that to other people.
Right.
Nobody's going to prove it to you for you. You're going to have to show them what you're capable of, and then folks are going to say great and help you succeed from there.
Yeah, I agree.
But,
yeah.
Yes, come do it. One of the things I see, especially having some newer laborers working for us who are women, is I am physically smaller in stature than a lot of guys. That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And having come straight out of college in a management role, this hasn't been a huge issue for me. Right now we're doing, 2 days a week, I spend a lot of time carrying 5-gallon buckets of stone. I really can't carry a full bucket of stone very far, but I can carry 4/5 of a bucket of stone far.
Yeah.
And so to any guys out there that are around women, let them, even if it's less than what you can do, let them do what they're capable of.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get stronger if I don't keep trying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
that's
so
applicable to even a new laborer that's a guy, just let people try, even if they're not doing it as good as you.
Yeah, and I think that because they're, people think they're being gentlemanly instead of doing it instead of letting the woman struggle. But if someone's coming into this industry as a woman, they're not, as a laborer especially, not me in a management role, but they're not going to get to move up if they're not given those chances themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen that happen before with a woman laborer. The guys would, let me do that for you. Let me, trying to be sweet on her. But then what does the management see? They see her just kind of standing there while the guys take over her work, and she's just not really cut. And she's not getting any better because nobody's letting her do the work.
It's exactly what we've been seeing as well.
And also another thing that I like to say is, I don't know why more people aren't targeting women. I think that there's still just an old school mindset in certain regards to that kind of stuff. But I think that a lot of the industry is missing out on 50% of the population by not at least trying. Because there's a lot of great women operators out there. You don't have to be big and macho to run a track hoe.
Nope.
You just got to be able to climb up the steps and pull some levers.
Yeah, we sat down as a company management team last winter and was like, how do we get more people? How do we get more young people? This, we see the same thing everyone else does. All of our good operators are 60 years old.
Yeah.
And we still, we're lucky that we've actually had several women apply and come work for us. We're not sure what we did differently to make that happen. Hopefully we can keep doing it, but definitely if anyone out there has success for that, love to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, just like anybody else, you can train somebody to run it. It doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. And, one thing that I love is that I've learned from working with women in the industry is most of them, and I don't know if it's just that mentality of they just feel that they have to prove themselves more, so they work harder, or if they're just smarter in general, could be that too. But it just seems like a lot of them will work harder because they really want to show that, hey, I'm just as good as anybody else.
Actually, I feel like most people, the baseline assumption is lower, so you work harder to prove that it was wrong.
Right. Yeah. I want to go back to what you said earlier about a guy that's explaining something to you that you already know all about. Is guys are so bad about mansplaining things.
Yep.
And I'm sure you probably get a lot of that crap, and you're like, just stop. I don't need you to mansplain things to me.
Especially salesmen. I'm like, I promise, when I call you and I recite the exact thing off the approved materials list, that's what I want to order. I don't want the other options.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just salesman for you.
True.
They're just trying to sell. Yeah. So, what would you say to those other women who might be, whether it be a young girl who's, right now wants to be a fairy princess or something, but eventually will have to get a job, or to the moms of, a younger girl, or to somebody who's about to go to college or maybe about to graduate college and doesn't really know what they want to do and hasn't even really considered construction? What would you say to them?
I think to a younger kid, if you're interested in, go outside, play in the dirt, play with toy dump trucks. Don't, especially the parents, don't let your kid be limited by traditional gender roles and toys, because
Hmm.
they will then have a traditional gender role view of jobs as they get older.
Yeah.
But to somebody going into college, go for it.
Yeah.
And if you get out and you get a job and you're working for a company where you're not feeling supported, there are better companies out there. And everyone needs help right now. So if a company's not treating you right, go somewhere that does.
Yeah. Don't judge the whole industry based off of one experience.
Yeah. There's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of people who want young folks to succeed. Um, it just might take some time to find those.
Yeah. And I would encourage the parents of those kids, or if you're a parent too and you're looking for, a different gig, or just anybody who's like, man, I'm not very satisfied in my job, maybe that would be fun. Just go out on a job site. Just call up a company, or, I mean, most job sites, especially work that like you or I do, road work, you can just pull up and watch, and it's public. Just
Yeah.
show up and watch for a little while. Talk to the people. Just say, hey, what are you doing here? What is this? What is that machine for? Most of these guys will talk to you and they'll explain things to you, and just see if it's something that you'd like and just get exposure to it.
Yeah. I mean, we've hired people who have come up and started chatting and just seen this work outside their house, and now it's a job.
Nice. Yeah. And that's awesome. And getting that exposure is so important. And also to companies, if you have people in the office, get them exposed to your field operations, because they might say, hey, I actually want to do this instead. Or they may just gives them better understanding of how to do their job.
Yeah, our controller loves going to job sites because she gets to understand what bills she's been paying.
Right.
Oh, when I see these words, that's what it means.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool whenever they go out there and they're like, oh, that's what a milling machine is, or that's what a paver is, or this all makes more sense to me now. Just seeing things, and it makes them do their job better. And like I said, you might have people in the office with, maybe their entry, or, or just they're just tired of being in the office, and they go out there and they go, hey, what do I got to do to learn that?
So actually, it's kind of cool. We have a older woman who works in our office tracking like quantities for us,
Yeah.
but she used to be an off-road truck driver, and she is a good off-road truck driver. And was
Nice.
on a project that was just setting up a haul road, and they were real nervous about it, but it had to be steep until we could cut it down.
Hmm.
And they actually called her up and was like, "Hey, we need the best off-road truck driver. Can you come test this?"
That's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome.
That's funny. So she just was an off-road truck driver, and she just kind of made that transition eventually to working in the office, I guess.
Yeah.
Got tired of doing one thing and switched to the other. That is really cool. I
And
love
she does
that.
really well at her job because she worked in the field for so long. And so when somebody comes in and turns in their quantities, if you say undercut, well, normally with undercut, you're putting something back. And if you don't turn that in, she's like, well, what you put back in there?
That's
And
cool. So she knows her shit is what
yeah.
she knows. Good for her. That's cool. I like that. You don't hear about that very often. I like that she went from that field role to whatever reason she decided to go to the office role, but now she really knows it, and she can do her job well because she's seen it firsthand
Yeah.
for a long
She's
time.
been in the office as long as I've known her, but she is so organized.
That's awesome. Something else that you mentioned to me before, whenever we were talking on Instagram, because you bought some shirts from us, some Dirty and Driven athletic shirts. Um, you said that you have like a crew of you guys that work out every morning. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So actually pretty cool. When I was in my interview for this job, they always ask the dreaded, like, what do you like to do outside of work? And I was like, oh, well, I do CrossFit. And there's 3 other people, and they're all like, oh, me too. I was like, what? This is unique for construction.
Hmm.
And the owner of my company is very into health and fitness and owns a gym space, and it's you know a perk of our working there is getting to work out as a group together. And
Nice.
they've been doing that long before I worked here. And I actually, even once I started this job, stayed with the gym I was at just because there was a community I was part of and liked. And when I moved last year, started working out with them. And it's when you're going to the gym at 5:25 in the morning, I personally at that hour need outside accountability.
Yeah.
I won't go on my own at that hour. And so if you tell somebody, look them in the eye when you're leaving work, like, see you in the morning,
Yeah.
they're gonna call you out on it and give you shit if you don't show up.
Yeah.
And it's cool, it's really cool that he provides the space for us, and we just take turns making up the workout, making up different workouts. And um, I really enjoy it.
Yeah. What a way to build a team. There's no better team building than just getting out there and sweating together.
And then also everyone has the same muscle sore on the same day, so you're like complaining about it together.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. You're all working as a team, as a unit, and now you're doing hard things together outside of just work. And that's how you really grow a good team and a good bond. That's so cool that you guys do that.
Yeah. Also, I do have a funny story of how I actually started going to the gym in the first place.
Yeah.
So I was always active through like high school and college, and then started working in construction and been working about a year. Really wasn't very active, and was working a stint of 3 nights babysitting flaggers. I wasn't even flagging. I was just sitting in a truck making sure the flaggers were doing their job. It was miserable.
That's brutal. Oof.
And it was like 3 a.m. the third night, and I was just sitting there. I was like, I'm not happy with my life. And went home, broke up with the guy I was seeing the next day, and joined a gym the day after. And
Nice.
I have not looked back on either of those choices.
That's great. Yeah. You're like, all right, time to ditch the dead weight and get my
Like,
shit in gear. Let's go.
apparently it took a life crisis at 3 a.m., but definitely made good choices.
Yeah, we've all had a life crisis at 3 a.m. Good deal. Good for you.
Try to be asleep at 3 a.m. most of the time,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's great. And it's so cool because, like I said, a lot of people in this industry don't prioritize their health and fitness, whether they're in the office or the field, because field people are like, oh man, I'm just juiced from the day. And then office people, they work a lot in the office and they're like, I don't
yeah,
want
I
to.
think it's something really unique that we have this group that prioritizes both working out and also at least eating healthier.
Yeah.
If we go out to lunch as an office, we choose places where, like, okay, where's the place that has a good, like those kinds of, it's easier to eat healthy when you're surrounded by people who eat healthy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because, like, a lot of people, they bring in cakes and things like that to the office all the time. I mean, if I ate everything that somebody baked and like brought to the office, I would be a big dude, not in a good way.
I will say that month before Christmas is hard because every supplier is bringing in
Yeah,
something.
that's a tough season. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes in the door that way. But so, did you guys were they already working out together before you showed up, or was that something you guys kind of started after?
No, that was pre me working there, so I don't know how they all started working out together.
That's so cool, though. And you guys have a gym at your office?
It's in a separate building. The owner of my company also owns this separate building, then he rents out most of the space inside of it, but has a gym space reserved for, we use it and a couple other people do.
That's just so cool. So is it mainly managers and stuff like that doing it, or do you have all sorts of people?
Mainly managers.
Yeah.
I think before I started coming in the mornings, there was a couple field guys, but one of them had a kid and those kinds of things. The committing to the 5:30 in the morning, it's a commitment, and it affects everybody that you live with as well.
Yeah, it does.
If I have to go to bed at 9:30 at night, and right now I'm living in a rental apartment where there is a window from our living room to our bedroom. So when I go to bed at 9:30, now my boyfriend has to turn the lights down and, turn the TV down because there's a window. Who puts a window
Yeah.
into a bedroom?
That's a weird deal. I've never
It's
heard
really
of
annoying. I cannot wait to move. But,
that.
um, you have to have the buy-in from everyone you're living with in order to
Yeah.
be committed to something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do. So I just love that. I love that you guys do that. I wish more companies, or even not necessarily companies, but just crews, people, coworkers would do that, because that's one of the biggest things that I see in the construction industry right now is just not much culture and not much truly knowing each other outside of work. And I'm sure it's like that in other industries too. I just say construction because that's the industry I work in. But uh, whenever you do that stuff together, it creates a culture without you even necessarily knowing it. It's just saying, yeah, we go and we work hard together before work, and then we come and we operate as a team at work.
Yeah. And, you know, I truly feel like they care about me as a person. When we work out, one of our project managers' wives comes, so like I've gotten to know her a lot better because we're working out in the morning, and
Yeah.
she doesn't do anything related to construction, but she knows all kinds of stuff because she spends all this time with the group who does this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with inviting outsiders to it. That's amazing. And I'm glad to see people in the industry that are promoting their health and fitness, because that's something we talk about a lot on this podcast. And it's something that I'm passionate about, because when you work in this industry, it's hard. And if you're in the office position, it is mentally tasking, and having that physical release is amazing. And then if you work out in the field, you're taking care of your body and building up your muscles so you can work longer and you can work more efficiently, because you're not going to get tired as fast and you're not breaking down your body as quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Props to you guys for that one. Well, I got to wonder though, what is the dirtiest job you've ever had?
All right. So I'm also a certified blaster, and right now we're blasting the sewer project I'm on, and we're right
Mm-hmm.
next to a creek, and it's super muddy, and so we're standing right there with the drill as they're drilling the hole to then put the explosives in,
Yeah.
and the mud that's flying out of this drill is like just barely liquidier than peanut butter.
Yeah.
And we've learned our lesson now, but when we first started doing this the first couple of days, you'd be standing right there and all of a sudden, it'd be just a little bit of dust, and then all of a sudden, like a bucket's worth of peanut butter consistency mud would be splashed across you completely.
Hmm.
Got so covered a couple of days that it was like getting back to the truck, like I've got to have a clean shirt somewhere. I can't wear this dripping. It's like, and it doesn't dry like normal dust. It doesn't turn to dust you can shake off. It's
Hmm.
just like this cream that sticks to your clothes.
Oh, that's nasty.
So
Yeah,
I
I could see where that'd be gross.
had to choose something that wasn't sewer for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, man. Just getting covered in peanut buttery blasting mud. I've never been around any blasting operations personally, but I can imagine that is just some gross stuff.
You know, most of the time it's not like that. Most of the time you're drilling through rock and it's just dusty.
Yeah, just dust.
But this project's so deep that there's 12 feet of mud before you can get to the rock.
Gotcha. So is that something? Is it just because you guys are digging and you're digging through a lot of rock where you're at regionally? Is that why you have to blast?
Yep.
Okay. So how'd you become a certified blaster?
Um, so I guess the blasting company is technically a sister company for who I work for, and I thought it was interesting. And it was like, all right, well, come out and work with us, and if you still like it, you can get your license. And then the guy who was heading that up left to go do something else, and we're like, oh, we need a blaster.
Hmm.
And so I did think it was interesting, and I enjoyed it, and it's something where it's physical work. I mean, you're physically putting the explosives in the hole and covering it up, just carrying 5 gallons of buckets of stone and dumping it down there. And I enjoyed getting a chance to do that. I really enjoyed it when it was occasional. I still like it now that it's weekly.
Yeah.
And it's a very cool intersection of this is what the math says should happen, but this is what I'm seeing in the field, so this is how we're going to do our shop design. So I like getting to do that.
That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, because there's a lot that goes into blasting, math wise and planning wise, and it's not just throw a bunch of dynamite in a hole and let her rip.
No.
I love that. Yeah, I've always wanted to be on a blasting project, so that's neat that you did that and that you still do that. You guys, I mean, I take it. I mean, I just don't know the conditions up in your region, but I mean, I take it it's just all rock up there, pretty much.
So this specific project, yeah, it varies. This is gneiss rock, which is super hard. You're never going to hammer it. You need to blast it. We've got other projects that have more of a shale where you could blast it if our blasting crew was free, but we hammered it and it wasn't an issue. Mm-hmm. We're in the Blueridge Mountains, so it kind of changes with your elevation throughout the region.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's not as exciting as you think. Everybody thinks blasting, it's all gonna like this big boom. It's like the dirt lifts up 3 feet and drops back down.
Yeah, just like.
And they're like, oh, sweet, we did a good job today, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you wouldn't really want it to just go flying way up in the air because that creates hazards.
Yes, all vegetable is good.
Yeah. That is how people get hurt. Especially if you're on a roadway and there's traffic driving by.
Yeah, we had a project unrelated to the interstate that was within 1,000 feet of the interstate, and boy, did VDOT freak out.
I bet.
Like, it took us a while. We're like, we promise in your manual right here, it says the blaster gets to decide if this is safe. It's safe.
It's safe. We say so.
They wanted a little more.
So what kind of crew do you have to have for blasting? Is it just like a couple people, or what all goes into just doing a blast?
Yeah. Ideally, you're looking like a 4 to 5 man crew. You've got a driller. In the right word, your driller's going to drill the day before, and you're going to have 100 open holes to blast. Gotcha. Right now, I'm working in such muddy conditions that the holes won't stay open overnight, so it has changed our production a lot. And then you've got, your blaster and somebody else who's a competent person that's physically putting explosives in the hole, and then 1 or 2 people that are just helping you carry stone all day long.
Gotcha. Huh, that makes sense. So is it kind of an all-day thing whenever you go to blasting?
Yeah. For us right now, like we start at 7 and we pull the trigger at 2:30 every day, because our driller is also our CDL driver, and the magazine location's far enough away. There's a whole host of regulations about where you can store explosives that if we blasted much later than that, it messes with his CDL hours.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's always a factor.
Yeah, and we like the consistency at the same time every day because like the fire marshals have to be there. So for their schedule, they can just know, okay, this is the time we show up.
Yeah. Dang. Okay, so there's a lot that goes into it. Way more than meets the eye.
Yeah, and you have to have permits, and if you're near houses, they have to be surveyed. If you're near, we shot near a Columbia Gap 8-inch line. So they surveyed it before we blast. We blasted. They surveyed it after we blasted.
Yeah, I bet the utility people don't like it whenever they hear that you're blasting. Even if you're out of there right away.
Yeah. They get a little nervous when you get in there right away, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. That's really cool. I didn't know all that. I learned a lot about blasting today.
So I can go on and on about it, but that's the basics. That and people really don't actually use dynamite anymore.
Really? So what are you using?
It's like a packaged emulsion project. I think it's similar to C4. I think. Nobody quote me on that one. And it's literally just comes in what seems like giant tubes of toothpaste.
Really?
Like that's the consistency if you cut them open. It's like 2.5-inch diameter.
That's crazy. So how do you actually rig it up? Do you just like put it on a wire, or how do you? I mean, you put that in the hole, and then what makes it go boom?
So we use what's called like a cap sensitive product. So it just needs like a small explosion to set off the big explosion. So we literally it's like a 2-inch long metal cap. That's what we call it. And you just literally just stab it into the explosive, wrap the cord around it, and it's like a 30-foot cord, and you drop that down in the hole. And then most of the time you're going to put multiple packages in the same hole. So you have to make sure that they're touching, because if there is a gap between them, then the second one won't go off.
Yeah.
And then all those caps, you hook them together various ways to do your timing, and it goes off like 25 milliseconds apart.
And how deep are you usually when you're blasting? Does it just vary on
It varies.
where the rock is? Yeah.
This project we're anywhere from 14 to 25 feet deep. I've blasted it like 6 to 8 feet, but you have to when you're that shallow, you have to be really careful about making sure that you don't send things flying everywhere.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was wondering. Is there a regulation on how deep you have to actually be, or can you do it at really any depth as long as it's safe?
I honestly couldn't tell you if there's a regulation or if it's recommended. But we always, if we have less than 6 feet of dirt cover, we use blasting mats, which are just basically old truck tires stitched together.
Oh, I got you. Just something real heavy, rubber, not going to fall apart.
Yeah, and so that way, basically, they hold down the explosion.
I got you. You'll have to send me some videos of you blasting, even though you say it's not very exciting. Watching 3 feet of dirt lift up and go back down is still exciting.
Hey, we legally have to videotape every shot, so I've got plenty.
Oh, cool. Yeah, send me some stuff. We'll post it.
Okay.
I like that kind of stuff. Sweet. Well, I got to wrap this up. Got to get out of here before too long, so we'll wrap it up. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, but if you're a woman thinking about going into construction, go for it. And if you're thinking about dragging yourself out of bed to go work out, find a buddy and do it.
Yep. Hey, my wife just started doing that too. I've been trying to get her to go to the gym at 5 a.m. for ever. She's like, hell no. Well, she got a buddy. That's when she goes, and she's like, all right, I'm gonna start going to the gym at 5 a.m. I'm like, cool. Glad you found someone that you can do that with now.
No, it took a buddy for me to do it too.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, cool. Well, guys, be sure to rate it 5 stars. Do you have anywhere that you want people to follow you or check out you guys' stuff or anything?
Yeah, you can. I mean, my Instagram is Chalk Sauce. My last name is a brand of chocolate syrup, and I made this Instagram when I was 17 and haven't changed it.
Nice.
But feel free to follow me there. It's mainly hiking and dog content, but a little bit of construction thrown in.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, you can't beat the Blueridge Mountains. Cool. Well, we're gonna end this so we can all go sing Country Roads.
Which is actually about Western Virginia, not West Virginia. Thank you very much.
Oh, Western Virginia. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. Now you learned something else. Rate that 5 stars because I bet none of you knew that.
Oh yeah, only if you live in this exact region would you have feelings about it.
Yeah, you said the Blue Ridge Mountains. I was like, hey, I know that. Cool.
There's a song.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.